For more than 70 years, a peninsula with one language and one culture
is still haunted by a tense border and an endless war. People who were unified for centuries are now fragmented, with politics taking precedence over the ties of family, language, and tradition. The tightly fortified demilitarized zone between North and South Korea is all that remains. Occupied by Japan in 1910, Korea was put under Japanese colonial rule for 35 years, ending the rule of the Goryeo dynasty. On the verge of the outbreak of World War II, the Soviet Red Army entered with the Korean fighters, led by Kim Il-sung, to North Korea, and triggered the end of the Japanese occupation. Days later, the US landed its power in South Korea, and Washington showed concern around the advance of the Soviet forces and feared Korea would become outside its influence and adopt the communist regime. In order to ensure their control, the Americans wanted to map out a zone of their control in Korea. Two US Army colonels, Charles Bonesteel and Dean Rusk, were assigned to suggest a dividing line. The 38th parallel, a popular name for the 38 North border between North and South Korea, was chosen to demarcate the region's boundaries. It passes in the middle of the island, separating the American and Soviet forces, and was a prelude to the division of Korea. However, the 38th parallel's position proved unfortunate, harming the economies of both sides. Most of the electoral and heavy industrial resources were centered north of the line, while the majority of the agricultural and light industrial resources were centered south of the line. It was necessary for both the North and the South to recover, but they would do so under various political systems. After the war, Korea picked two dates for the establishment of a unified government under supervision of the international trusteeship system. But the plan failed with the escalation of tension and the beginning of the Cold War. In 1948, the Republic of Korea was established in the south, headed by Syngman-rhee. In the north, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was founded under the leadership of Kim Il-sung. 2 years into the establishment of the two countries, a war broke out between them, in which America intervened to support South Korea after it was about to lose the war. And China later intervened to support the DPRK and stop American attacks in the north. On July 27, 1953, a ceasefire agreement was struck, putting an end to the war. But the harm was already done. More than 2 million people had died, and both nations started to develop in quite different ways. These two areas of the same peninsula may just as easily exist as separate nations today. North Korea is currently led by Kim Jong-un, and the South by the newly elected president, Yoon Suk-yeol. The two nations have cut and restored the hotline between them over the years. Last year, the two reopened communication with an agreement to build trust and improve ties. Pyongyang had unilaterally cut all communication channels with the South in 2020, in protest of the South floating anti-Pyongyang leaflets across their border.
북남 사이의 모든 통신 연락선들을 완전 차단해버리는 조치를 취함에 대하여 조선중앙통신사 보도. 남조선 당국은 저들의 중대한 책임을 노절한 간판을 들고 어쩔 수 없다는 듯 회피하면서 쓰레기들의 반공화국 적대 행위를 묵인하여 북남 관계를 파국적인 종착점으로 몰아왔다.
But this year, Kim Jong-un and his counterpart at the time, Moon Jae-in, exchanged letters of hope, which expressed optimism for improved bilateral ties, which deteriorated in the last few years due to a halt in nuclear discussions. Even though they share the same holidays, appreciate the same food, and speak the same language, the difference between the two countries seems to exceed any similarities. The horrific Korean War and the superpowers' planned actions both failed to bring Korea back together. Despite relations between these two dynamic ends being strained for years, could the old division ever be less distinct?